Good morning, and welcome to Lesson 1, Video 38. Now, we've already gone through every aspect of the information you need to learn for the first lesson. And for the last, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. For the last 4 videos, we've just been doing guided meditation. And today is no exception. Today we're going to deconstruct sadness. And you'll notice I use the term deconstruct rather than the term eradicate or get rid of or repress or suppress or repent. Because here's the deal. There is this horrible, dark myth perpetrated by fundamentalists, sometimes with an innocent heart, sometimes with a less than innocent heart, that if we just loved God or Vishnu or Buddha or Allah or Christ enough, we couldn't possibly be depressed. I got news for you folks. Depression is not a cognitive disorder. It's not due to a lack of gratitude or faith. It is a physiological disorder in the brain with the chemistry and the mechanics and the electrical system. If you got someone telling you that your depression or your chronic sadness is some sort of a spiritual indictment, then that person is not giving you sound advice, and they're probably making you feel even worse. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying depression ain't no thing. It is a serious issue that needs to be dealt with by people who know what they're doing. If you want to take the allopathic approach, then don't have your general practitioner or your primary care physician manage your meds. Find a psychiatrist to manage your meds, someone whose entire career revolves around that. I can't tell you how many control freaks I've met who've tried to manage their own meds. It never goes well. If you don't want to take the allopathic approach, then find a specialist who has made that the focus of their professional career. If you want to find an osteopath, or if you want to find an acupuncturist, or an energy worker, or a nutritionist, or whoever your specialist is, make sure that's the center of the professional practice. You don't want a dabbler working with your neurotransmitters. Find an expert who can guide you, who will listen to what you say, but ultimately is guided by their insight and their expertise, whether it's psychiatric or holistic. Find someone with a track record who can help you out. One of my teachers many years ago said, "Hey, America is a highly litigious country. Don't set yourself up for needless lawsuits. Therefore, if you aren't a licensed psychiatrist, then refrain from using psychiatric terms. Instead of saying depression, say sad, sorrow, despair. Instead of saying bipolar, say flipping and flopping from despair to elation." That might sound picayune, but it's important. It's important that we have a humble assessment of our areas of expertise. Having said that, everything, it's been my experience that everything affects everything. Getting enough sleep at the right time. After all, we're diurnal creatures, not nocturnal creatures. Eating the right diet, getting the right food, eating the right foods at the right times, drinking the right beverages, getting fresh air, sunshine on your, fresh air in your lungs, sunshine in your skin, recreation with your body, recreation with your heart, recreation with your mind, fulfilling a sexual relationships, fulfilling romantic relationships. All these affect every other aspect of our life, and they must be addressed. If we go through life as slackers, we're going to get craptacular results. Sometimes chronic sadness or despair can be a great wake-up call, so we can start fine-tuning our exercise and our diet and our sleeping habits and our social habits. We can be very, very choosy about who we let in our mind and who we let in our aura and who we let in our heart. You can love a complete bastard. It doesn't mean it's good for you. It doesn't mean it won't harm you. Choose your friends wisely. Choose your recreation wisely. Choose your entertainment wisely. Everything affects everything. Now, enough of this rigmarole. Well, actually, I'm going to stop for a second and give you some more specifics. I'm going to use some terms that are very popular on the internet, on YouTube, on Google. Look them up. There's a phrase right now that's very popular. It's whole food, plant-based nutrition. And there's a lot of people, even paleo eaters, are saying processed food is not good for you. It will wreak havoc on your health, on your mind, and your emotions. If you want to have healthy food, then many experts agree to stay away from animal products. That it's just healthier in this day and age to have a plant-based diet. There are wonderful books on that subject. I recommend books by Dr. McDougall or by, how do I pronounce his name? Dr. Neil Barnard. He has some excellent books. And like I said, there's tons of free information on YouTube. It's a wonderful resource. Make the most of it. There's lots of information about what to eat, and there's also information about when to eat. So this is kind of neat. In the last few years, the phrase has been generated, intermittent fasting. When I first heard about this, I was very reticent. My last experience with going without food and eating nothing but water was for 14 days, and it was disastrous. I did not have a good result with that. Gotta be honest. I'm not saying that's how it is for everyone all the time. Just being honest, my last result with that, very negative. And I come from a culture that loves to eat. I was raised Semitic, I was raised Jewish. Oh, we love to eat. And we love to feed others. It's just crazy. And so the idea of missing a meal, missing a snack, no less a meal, it did not sound very good to me. But as I got older, I began to notice a sensation, and it felt like there was a bit of a traffic jam in my gut. And I did some more research, and it turns out there's different styles of intermittent fasting. And the one that spoke to me most deeply was the idea of not skipping days in your eating, but just limiting your window of eating. And so, for instance, some people have an 8-hour window. Some people have a 5-hour window. Some people, for instance, will eat from 1 o'clock in the afternoon all the way through 6 o'clock. They'll stop eating at 6. Or some people start eating at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They stop eating at 7. Personally, because I teach webinars in the evening, that didn't work for me. And so I began playing with it, and then I remembered that in the Pali Canon of Buddhist scripture, there was a practice mentioned whereby novice monks would have a snack at the break of dawn. And then full monks and novice monks would have one meal, usually before noon, in the later morning. And I guess we would call that brunch. And so I shifted my eating window till the morning. I typically have my first meal at 9 a.m. My last meal is concluded by 2 p.m. And that typically gives me enough energy to make it through an evening webinar, which is very important to me. Now you can say that sounds like anorexia. Well, no. If you eat, there are some too. There's a fun channel on YouTube called the Fasting Twins, and these guys are bodybuilders. They are big guys, clearly non-anorexic. Anorexia is about caloric deprivation. If you are consuming the optimal amount of calories you require every day, whether it's 2,000 or 2,500 or 2,600 or 2,800, if you're consuming the optimal amount of calories you require every day, then you're not anorexic. If you're consuming your optimal number of calories a day when you're not puking it up, then you're not bulimic. By choosing to minimize our eating window, we maximize the amount of time during the day when our body can process the foods. Whether we choose to make that an 8-hour gap, a 16-hour gap, or a 19-hour gap. Some people even make it a 23-hour gap. By doing that, our body has the energy to process that. And when I first heard about that, I wasn't super impressed. What really got my imagination going is when people talked about that it gives the body the opportunity to release hormones it normally doesn't release. And hormones that help with using fat as fuel or burning fat, hormones that deal with physical strength and mental acuity, such as testosterone, and a whole bunch of hormones that I can't remember and that, quite frankly, I'm not an expert in. And that really caught my attention because weakness was something I've wrestled with my entire adult life. And so what I found is 9 times out of 10, limiting oneself to a 5-hour eating window, non-erotically. There'll be some days where it's difficult, some days where it's easy. Once you've moved your final meal out of your stomach, it gives you fantastic energy. But let's face it, whenever you eat, you get a little bit drowsy. That's just life. So what I do is I eliminate all snacks. I just have those 2 meals. My meal that begins around 9, depending upon how my schedule is going, and my meal that concludes before 2. And I've had really good results. I've wrestled with intense disabilities my entire life, and whenever I find something that gives me even a teeny modicum of lucidity and productivity, I am just delighted. I mention this because I've had people tell me, people who've struggled with depression and various and sundry and panic disorders and stuff like that, tell me that playing with this intermittent fasting, intelligently playing with it, especially combining it with a whole food plant-based diet, has done wonders for their emotional well-being, their intellectual resourcefulness, their emotional resiliency. So I mention this because one of the funny things about this is there was a song, I think it came out in the 20s, that sang that everything old is new again. Well, spiritual men and women have been practicing intermittent fasting on a daily basis for more than 26 centuries. That's a mighty long time in the history of civilization. Now, enough of that. Let's figure out how to bring our crap moods, how to bring our sadness, how to bring our despair, how to bring our sorrow, how to bring into the path of awareness and letting go. Well, it's about time, Lama Jigme. I've been sitting here waiting for you to tell me something substantial. Well, I'm happy to be of service. So here's the deal. I gotta tell you what I always tell you. These techniques aren't going to make a lick of sense. I love that. It sounds terribly dirty, even though it's not. These techniques aren't going to make any sense unless you are looking at the latest version of the collection of lesson texts, simply entitled First Set of Lesson Texts. It's a PDF. You download it for free. Look down below this video. There should be, 2 links. If you don't see 2 links below this video, then you're probably not on this video's dedicated YouTube page. You may be watching on Facebook or Pinterest or Tumblr, or you may be watching it on, I don't know. Did I say Facebook? Anyway, or you may be watching this on the channel page. So even if you're on the channel page, find the little teeny icon in the bottom right hand corner that says YouTube. Give that a click or two. Before you know it, you'll be on this video's dedicated page. In the box just below this video, you'll find 2 links. The second link should lead you to a page where you get your practice materials, and get those practice materials just as quick as you can. 3 things there that are absolutely free are an essay describing, what kind of mindset to have, to bring to the classes, the video classes. The second thing there is a link to get or to acquire, to download the latest PDF, and it's updated about 4 or 5 times a week. So it's a work in progress. So definitely take the 90 seconds that's required to download the latest version. I'd be glad you did. The third thing there that's for free is an image of the Buddha of Compassion and your teacher. And it's very useful. Print that bad boy out, put it in a frame. You'll be glad you did. Okay. Now, there's a second thing I gotta tell you. I always mention it. Don't get bored, but I'll tell you it's important. If this is your first time watching silly old Lama Jigme do a video, then you've started, into a series of videos that has already begun. This is video 38. You've missed a lot of information. Go back, watch lesson 1. Part 1, then lesson 1, part 2. And it might take you, 38 days. It might take you 15 days. Oh, heck, it might take you 10 days. It's not a race. Watch one video. Don't multitask. Give it your full attention. Otherwise, this won't make any sense to you, and it won't benefit you. This is a cumulative process. Each lesson building on the lesson that came before it. So set yourself up for success. I don't want you saying, "Oh, Lama Jigme, you have a funky haircut and cool robes, therefore I believe in you." Please don't. Belief is a trap. It's simple. How do you determine whether a teacher is worthy of guiding you? Simple. Suspend judgment, receive a teaching, apply the teaching. Do the homework once every morning, once every night, for 6 consecutive days. Folks, if you don't have the personal power to do a 9-minute exercise twice a day for 6 consecutive days, yours truly is the least of your problems. Re-engage your judgment, notice your results. If you got crap results, go find another teacher. But if you got good results, don't be a chump. Come back, get more teachings. That's the whole idea. So even though there are 38 videos in this lesson thus far, it's still one lesson. So you watch all the videos of the lesson, and you practice along with the guided meditation twice a day, every day. That's how it works. Set yourself up for success. Okay. beating over. Let's start the practice. Join me, won't you please, on page 4, the PDF that I know you already downloaded. Page 4, here we go. So, we're going to use the term sad. Sad sex. No one likes feeling sad. But we all feel sad every now and again. So rather than berate ourselves or ignore the sorrow, we're going to use the sorrow as an energy pack. That's right, we want to be the spiritual version of an Energizer Bunny. So here we go, page 4. Where is this purple crown Om wheel? Exercise 2, page 4. What sadness am I now experiencing? And I'm going to stop you for a second. Some people know or don't know. Some people infer or have inferred that my lineage is Tantric, and I'm not a fundamentalist Buddhist. I'm a non-sectarian Buddhist. I am very liberal in my approach. I started life off as very fundamentalistic, very fearful and rigid and aggressive, and I had that beat out of me. I've become very, very liberal. So there's 3 schools of Buddhism. There is Theravada, popular in Southeast Asia. There is Mahayana, popular in East Asia. And there is Vajrayana, popular in North Asia. And there are company like that. There are countries that attempt to blend all 3. So my lineage is non-sectarian. In Tibet, that's called Rime. R-I-M-E. So as a Rime, I practice a blend of the Theravada teachings and the Mahayana teachings and the Vajrayana teachings. Vajrayana teachings are also known as Tantrayana teachings, also known as the Tantric teachings. So here is the deal. The majority of nuns and monks who are in the Tantric lineage are fundamentalists. They're very conservative, and they've never been taught in an explicit way how to do sexual tantra. The few nuns and monks who do practice sexual tantra keep it a secret. If you've ever seen Anna and the King, you've seen what happened to nuns and monks when they're even suspected of having sex. So throughout the ages, Buddhist Tantra has been very, very repressed and suppressed and hidden and just about lied about. Also, in the history of Buddhism in Tibet, Tantric Buddhism came to Tibet in the 8th century, flourished for a short time, and then it was repressed or suppressed by a violent non-Buddhist king. He died eventually. He was replaced by another king, and Buddhism again was invited into Tibet. Some people refer to that as Buddhism's first renaissance in Tibet that took place during the 11th century. But remember what happened in America before World War II, before the Depression? Everything was wild. We had the Roaring '20s, then we had Depression, and then we had a war, and we came out of the war, and we became this very buttoned-down society. We had McCarthyism, and we had what I like to call, as a novice historian, neoconservatism. Neoconservatives you also see in trauma victims, or you see in abused children, or children who have been through trauma. And the idea is this: if I'm just good enough, nothing bad will happen. And it's based on fear, and it gives birth to controlling tendencies, and it's rather ugly. We saw it in America after World War II, and we saw it in Tibet after the first period of Buddhist suppression that ended in the 11th century. In the paintings and the thangkas and in the sculptures created before that, in the 8th century, you'd see male and female Buddhas in sexual congress, and you'd see, penises and vulvas, and you'd see tongues touching, and it's really arousing. If you look at the art created after that, if you see Buddhas in what used to call Yabyum, or oopsie, my shawl's getting away from me. You'll see them wearing little loincloths. So you no longer see, open mouth French kissing, or what some people call porno kissing, which is of course quite fun. And you don't see explicit sexuality in the artwork. I also stopped being taught. Tantric sex stopped being taught explicitly at a certain point. It was only hinted at. So part of my training as a liberal on the Buddhist supernatural path and a non-sectarian on the Buddhist supernatural path was to receive complete training in both spiritual tantra and sexual tantra. And I'll tell you the truth. One of the reasons nuns and monks don't date is because it's hard on the heart. It's hard on the heart to find someone you're physically compatible with, someone you're emotionally compatible with, someone you're intellectually compatible with, someone you're who's a suitable partner. It's easy to get your heart broke. And so it can make life a whole lot simpler just to cut that aspect away. But as a tantric practitioner, it's important for my spiritual training. And I'll tell you the truth, man. The search for a twin flame, a highly compatible partner, can be a heartbreaking experience. Why? Why is Lama Jigme telling us this? Because heartbreaking experiences can be a powerful source of spiritual growth if you use them right. I mean, there's the emotional pain of anger, there's the emotional pain of fear, but there's nothing quite like the emotional pain of sadness or rejection or disappointment. They're very unique to the human experience, and there are a few areas we are as vulnerable as our sexual and romantic lives. So if your spiritual, let's try that again, if your sexual life, if your romantic life is far from ideal, it sucks, it's painful. But if you use it right, it can be just a font of spiritual opportunity. Oh gosh, not too long ago, I found a profile on an internet dating site of a gal I thought would be Jim Dandy. I wrote her a letter or an email that I thought was quite witty. And I received a notification that she received it. I received another notification that she checked out my site. And then I never heard from the poor girl again. And it was it was wonderful to be that raw and that vulnerable and have something strike me so deeply. Now, I don't say wonderful because I like pain. I don't like pain. I'm a wimp just like you. But as a contemplative, it gave me an opportunity to practice with emotions that I didn't feel every day. And that's really, really useful. In one of the more conservative sects of Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about the object of negation, the object of shunyata's negation. And, having to search high and low to find the ideal of me that I tend to grasp at. The irony is that in one of the texts shared by all four sects of Tibetan Buddhism, it talks about using whatever makes our blood boil. Obviously, they're talking metaphorically. What they mean is whatever hits us hardest in the present moment, whether it's pleasure or whether it's pain, whether it's sorrow or whether it's joy, whatever's most real to us in the present moment, that is the thing we need to bring into the path. Whether we're bringing it into the path of Lamrim's contemplations, or we're bringing it into the path of Chok Chain's concentrations, we bring the intensity of the present moment, good, bad, or indifferent, glorious or grotesque. We bring that into the path, and that is huge. That's right, folks. I teach a webinar, as most of you know. It's a weekly webinar that lasts about a year, so that's about 50 classes, give or take. You know, there's holidays and stuff like that. So I divided it up into quarters. Each quarter is approximately 12 classes. So you can imagine at the end we've got some spare change. It's in the first quarter we set the stage. You learn the essential Lama. You learn the essential Chak Chen. You learn how to work with your channels, winds, and drops, and to feel what I like to call various types of bliss in your body, which is, of course, quite fun. In the second quarter, you get much deeper into the Lam Rim, and in the third quarter, you finally get to explore tantric sex. Nope, I don't take my clothes off and do the hibbity-dibbity during class. Sorry about that. I teach I teach what I call the inner game of Tantra. The Tantra takes place between your two ears, in your head, in your mind, so that whatever style of love-making strikes your fancy. Whether you want to make love like a Hindu princess or want to get it on like a porn queen, and all points in between, whatever style of making love strikes your fancy in the moment can still be brought into the tantric path if you learn how to bring tantra, if you learn the inner game of tantra. And so I've said all that to say this: when you get really, and by the way, you might ask, why, Lama Jigme, why do you wait to the third quarter to teach these cool, fun things? Because, folks, if you can't meditate with your clothes on, then you most likely cannot meditate with your clothes off whilst receiving your favorite sexual favor. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. So, but by the third quarter, you can. And so here's the idea of bringing what's most ever real to you in the moment into the path is that eventually, in the throes of lovemaking, while giving and receiving your favorite sexual favors, you'll be not only able to be in the moment more than ever before and feel more bliss than ever before, but you'll be able to have more awareness and more lucidity, and being able to find the exact space in that body where you're feeling that bliss at that moment, because it changes, and bring that bliss into the path of love and letting go in a way that multiplies your good karma and gives you great wisdom. Yes, folks, it's true. You can doink your way to nirvana. Am I blushing yet? But that's built on a lot of skills. The first skill is learning how to take whatever you feel in the moment most intensely and bringing that into the path. Folks, if we expect to be able to bring the glories of pleasure into the path, then we have to condition ourselves to also be willing to bring the grotesqueries of pain into the path. I once spoke to a writer, and he was being silly and playful and using excessive there's a word about, when you use a phrase that's been hackneyed and overused. Cliches. So he's using cliches just to be playful. And he said, yes, the pain was exquisite. Well, this guy was not a masochist. He was just being playful. But there's times when the pain is like, you know how some people describe wine as being complex and having all these different layers? I don't personally get one. I think it tastes like spoiled grape juice, but that's just me. Same thing with pain. The further you progress on the path, the less horrified you are with pain, and the more like a connoisseur. It's like, oh, gee, look at the nuances in this pain I'm experiencing right here. And we get there not by pretending we're Vulcan. We get there by using the techniques of the first lesson and all the other 50 lessons that follow. And yes, this is going to be a long series here on YouTube, if all goes well. by bringing our present moment experience, whether it's glorious or grotesque, into the path and work with it as intelligently as we can using the techniques we've already received. That is integral, not only to becoming enlightened, but on a lower level, to becoming a groovy tantric sex god. Who doesn't want that? And basically just a happier, more well-adjusted human being. I'm all in favor of that. How about you? So, on the topic of being a happier, more well-adjusted human being, not to mention a sex god or a Buddha, let's exercise the courage to work with the sadness that will rear its ugly head from time to time in our life. Let's explore that right now. Page 4, exercise 2. What sadness and its causes am I now experiencing? Stop you right there. So, I am already a non-conventional monk. Everything about me is non-conventional. That's not by choice. That's just how it worked out. I started off being very buttoned up. I wanted to be Captain Conservative. That's not how my journey worked out. Time and again, I had to choose between growth and towing the party line, and I always chose the former. I chose growth, and that made my life quite adventurous. So there are many people who would say, hey, this guy, he's evil because he practices tantric sex. He does the hibbity-dibbity all the way to nirvana. He must be wrong, wrong, wrong. Folks, the test of me being evil or not is not whether what I teach agrees or disagrees with your preconceptions, because you'll always find someone to believe or teach anything. The test of me being evil or good as a teacher is the stuff I teach doesn't work. There have been great nuns and monks and virtually every lineage of Tibetan Buddhism who practiced tantric sex. And if there's something that sets me apart is that I have either the courage or the stupidity not to lie about it, to be a completely open book. If you want to hate me, knock yourself out. If you want to become my student, sure, just, remember, the difference between an audience member and a student is an audience member, they might listen a little bit, but a student applies the advice. Remember, someone's only my student if they follow my instructions, if they apply my instructions. Otherwise, they're just a looky-loo. So, let's move forward. Exercise 3 on page 4. How could this sadness and its causes not satisfy? Remember how this works? If this is your first time watching this, probably confused by now. We're on page 5. But remember, these are rhetorical, assumptive, mantra-empowered questions. It's not our job to answer these bad boys. It's our job to ask these questions silently, mentally, or during the in-breath. That's right, folks. You can keep your eyes open and just read the question during the in-breath. During the out-breath, recite the mantra softly, just as many times as you comfortably can in the space of one breath. If you do it twice a day, every day, within a very short time, you too will be able to recite it 7 times. Ain't no thing. Remember, this is not the hard-ass path to enlightenment. You don't have to answer these questions. In fact, it works better if you don't. Ask the question, relax into the mantra, and you'll be astonished with how quickly you evolve. Page 5, exercise 1. How could this sadness and its causes not be permanent? Hey, Lama Jigme, why aren't you whispering? Because if I was whispering, you couldn't hear me. Many years ago, I had a student contact me because her co-worker had perished, and she could contact me expressly because she wanted to deal with the grief. Specifically, she was scared of losing her mind at the funeral or coming home from the funeral and swan diving into a bottomless abyss of despair. So we went through the basic techniques. I guess of lessons, gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think that was it. And then, maybe 6. No, it was just 5. And then the funeral came. She called me after the funeral. She called me all the way from England. And we'd use the simplest practice ruthlessly over and over and over again. She called me up and she said her grief was a 10. And we just went through the exercises once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, until finally it just clicked and the grief went away. That didn't mean she stopped loving her dead friend. It means she was, able to move forward. And that's huge. Buddha does not offer us freedom from the presence of sufferings. Look at Buddha's life. Look at Lao Tzu's life. Look at Christ's life. Look at Gandhi's life. Great saints, yes. Freedom from the presence of suffering? No, not so much with that. But what Buddha does offer us is freedom from the tyranny of suffering. Just like that wonderful song by There May Be Giants, You're Not the Boss of Me Now. The suffering may still be there, but it's not going to control our choices, the way we communicate with others, or our actions. To borrow a phrase from the African American community, the suffering's there, but it won't make us act the fool, and that's nice. So, page 5, exercise 1. How could this sadness and its causes not be permanent? Page 5, exercise 2. How could this sadness and its causes not be me? Page 5, exercise 3. How could this sadness and its causes not be mine? Some people say, what you doing with your head looking back and forth? Well, it's how I count to 7. First, I count to 7 by looking at an image of the face of the Buddha of Compassion. I recite the mantra twice. And I look at the face of an image of one of the corporeal teachers who I was very close to. And I recite the mantra 2 more times. That's a total of 4. Then I look back at the face of the Buddha of Compassion, recite the mantra 2 more times, total of 6. Then I close my eyes and recite the mantra the final time, and that's 7. And that works really well. Now, if you're still getting used to the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, that's perfectly fine for you to count. But eventually, I'm sorry, did I say count? It's perfectly fine for you to read it with your eyes wide open. But there will come a time when you no longer need to do that. And you won't have to force yourself. Your body will spontaneously stop. You'll stop reading it, which is pretty cool. So let's move forward now to page 6, exercise 1. How could this sadness and its causes not be graspable? Page 6, Exercise 2. How could I benefit from letting go of this sadness and its causes right now? Page 6, Exercise 3. What could completely letting go of this sadness and its causes feel like? And we're using that phrase and its causes because we're not just letting go of the emotion. We're letting go of the circumstance, whether it's present or past, whether it's real or imagined, whether it happened in your childhood or a second ago. We're letting go of that. I can't tell you how many people I meet who try to justify their less than optimal present moment behavior by going into the sad, sad story about their past. Folks, that doesn't work. First of all, it tears us violently out of the present moment. Bad thing to do. Second, it justifies not fixing our inappropriate behaviors. I don't want to do that. I want to keep fixing. I want to keep evolving. I want to keep growing. Why? Am I neurotic? Am I thinking I have to earn God's love by doing this? No! Because it's fun to grow. It's fun to evolve. It's fun to eat right and become lean and healthy. It's fun to exercise right and become strong and beautiful. It's fun to read things and watch theater and have incredible ideas enter your heart and mind. It's fun to grow. It's fun to evolve. Watch a plant in time-lapse photography. Its leaves will angle throughout the day to follow the path of the sun across the sky. How cool is that? There's something in nature which yearns to reach and grow to that which makes us our happiest and most fulfilled. Yes, there's a time to rest. Occasionally you might splurge and eat something or do something that's not the best for you, although I don't recommend that. But if you're going to be happy in the long run, thirst for excellence, gently, happily, playfully. You'll be glad you did. Again, exercise 3, page 6. What could completely letting go of the sadness and its causes feel like? Omani mani momani mani momani mani momani mani momani mani momani mani momani mani. Please join me on page 7, exercise 1. It's all about possibility, folks. Why could I let go of this sadness and its causes right now? Oh money, money, more 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 money, money. Exercise 2, page 7, motivation. Why would I let go of this sadness and its causes right now? More money, money, 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 more money, money. That reminds me. There is this fear we have that if we really love someone, we'll mourn deeply for them. If someone really loves us, they don't want us to mourn that deeply. They want us to get over it and move on with their lives. I'm reminded of the Roseanne show where she asked Dan, her husband, to have a large insurance policy so that if he should ever pass, she can mourn for him in Tahiti. I'm reminded of the movie The Coneheads, where Mrs. Conehead asked, in a moment of insecurity, asked her husband, Beltar, what he would do if she would die. And then reciting in a monotone way, he said in a monotone way, as if he were just writing from a script, that he would do the only noble thing, which is to wallow unbathed in his own filth till he starved to death and died of a broken heart. And as he said that, you could see this look of rapturous bliss on her face, and she fell asleep quite happily. There is a part of us, a juvenile, childish, self-centered, frightened, petty part of us, that wants those around us to mourn irreconcilably, in a manner that is horrible and life-altering for our passing. Whether we leave the planet and shed our mortal coil, or whether the relationship just dies, we want them not to get over us ever. But if we really, 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 really love someone, we do want them to get over us. And so, getting lost in grief does not make us good people. It does not make us noble-hearted. It just makes us suffering. There's nothing wrong with grief, but do your best to therapeutically back your way out of it. You know, do your best to therapeutically deconstruct it. Page 7, exercise 3. Volition, will, intention. When will I let go of this sadness and its causes? Oopsie, wrong mantra, wrong practice. Let's try that again, folks. Boy, is my face red. Okay, page 7, exercise 3. When will I let go of this sadness and its causes? Om mani padme hum, 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 om mani padme hum. Page 7, exercise 4. Now we voice not the affirmation, but simply the intention to let go. Completely letting go. Om mani padme hum, 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 om mani padme hum. We've completed the long rim section of our practice, and let's enter the Chogchen section. Page 8, exercise 1. What feeling? Letting go. Some people try to talk you out of what you feel, and they'll say, hey man, just talk about it, journal it, write it out, you'll feel better. And the answer is yes, it's called catharsis, and it does make you feel better, but it doesn't really solve anything. It doesn't really evolve you. Using these exercises not only makes you feel better, but it does evolve you. So people say, man, you shouldn't feel sad because you should tell yourself blah, blah, blah. No, that's foolish. You're allowed to feel what you feel. Be aware of what you feel and bring what you feel into the path. Remember, feeling sadness is not a spiritual indictment. I love FDR. I love Eleanor Roosevelt. Bless her heart. But I just don't agree with everything she taught. When her writings occasionally conflict with the Buddha's, I acquiesce to the latter. I think you'll understand why. So here's the deal. In a very famous quote that I'm going to brutally paraphrase, Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel small, unimportant, or frightened unless you give them permission. And the answer to that is bullshit. Smarter men than me, including the Buddha and physicists, will tell you there's this thing called interdependence. Things affect things, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, sometimes actually, sometimes just potentially. But things affect things. The causes affect things. Components affect things. Circumstances affect things. Cognition affects things. Oh yeah, I used 4 C words in a row. I must be a spiritual teacher. Ask a particle physicist. They'll tell you the mere act of being observed affects the behavior of subatomic particles. That's pretty wild stuff. everything affects everything. So if someone tells you, oh, dude, if you're really spiritual, someone won't be able to make you feel scared or sad. No, they can't. And you'll be able to say, hey, look, behold the power of interconnection. Buddha was right. And so was Newton. So don't let I'll tell you what, there are all kinds of people you find on the internet. On the doofus index, on one end, you have the cranky bastards who hate everyone and everything, especially you. On the other end, you have what I like to call the self-important Pollyannas. They've got these little wings and their little fairies and, oh, love and light to you. Woo! I can't tell you how many ridiculous things I've seen attributed to the Buddha that he never said, ever. I can tell you how many ridiculous things I've heard in the name of being loving, in the name of being sweet, or simply in the name of sounding more spiritual than one really is. That's just complete rubbish. There's nothing wrong with being sweet. There's nothing wrong with trying to be spiritual. But let's do it in a way that's truly beneficial. So don't let the cranky bastards or the ignorant love and lighters tell you that not to let someone make you feel a certain way. Because if you try to do that, that'll just make you more divorced from the present moment, less authentic to who you really are in the present moment, more neurotic and more deceitful. And nobody wants that. So let's courageously practice naked awareness. Now, you might say, naked awareness? Ooh, that sounds good. That sounds sexy. No, it's not that kind of naked. We're using the word naked metaphorically. We're talking about pulling back the armor that guards our heart. Metaphorically, put down the hatchet. No one has to get hurt. But dropping our armor. You like that? That's a new word. Armor. Let's try it again. Armor. I just washed my mouth and I cannot do a thing with it. Okay. So, let's drop our armor. Let's stop being a tough guy. And instead, let's feel whatever we feel in the present moment deeply. Whether it's glorious, whether it's grotesque. Give yourself permission to feel it deeply. You don't have to stay there. If you feel great sorrow, you don't have to stay in the sorrow for 10 years. You can say, oh, man, I'm feeling great sorrow. You can be aware of it with one exercise. What sorrow am I now experiencing? Oh, Monday put me home. Whew! Now I know what I'm feeling. Now I can dig my way out of the sorrow. This is me digging. You like it? Am I going digging up? Okay. Yes, a mime I am not. So let's so on the in-breath, let's exercise the courage to notice what we're feeling in the authentic, spontaneous, vulnerable moment. On the out-breath, let's use our wisdom to ride the natural mechanisms of our out-breath to let go of the solidity of our experience. Sometimes, as you let go, it'll feel like the emotion you're feeling or the sensation you're feeling becomes less solid. Other times, it'll feel like, no, it's still pretty solid, but I, who am experiencing it, seem to be becoming very unsolid. Which experience is better? It doesn't matter. It ain't your job to decide what you spontaneously experience, because if you decide what you're experiencing, it ain't no longer spontaneous. That reminds me of the Prussian stand-up comic who reaches into his back pocket and pulls out a 3x5 card with pre-written jokes on it, as he says, "And now it is time for the spontaneous jokes." If you're watching this in Germany, we kid you because we love you. But let's face it, neither the Japanese nor the German stereotypes are famous for spontaneity. Now, I'm sure there's some wonderfully spontaneous Germans and Japanese out there. But the cultural stereotype is contrary to that. We've all got cultural stereotypes. In America, we're considered gun-toting cowboys screaming "Yee-haw!" declaring war on OPEC nations. Good thing that's not true. Okay, so page 8, he said without his glasses. Page 8, exercise 1. What feeling? Letting go. Silent meditation. And oh yeah, this time, start counting on your mala. What hearing? Letting go. I live in Southern California in San Diego County because I'm on SSI. I have to live in the low rent part of San Diego County. It's known as East County. Not the most glamorous part of San Diego. And not a font of liberal thought. Way back when I first moved in this neck of the woods, the gay marriage issue was on the ballot, and there were kids on the corners screaming, holding up signs about homosexuals going to hell. Yes, not a very liberal part of town, not a font of progressive thought. And there are some people, even in the small area of my neighbors. Some of them think I'm sweet and hilarious. Some of them think I'm Satan himself. I have had neighbors just scream at me, beat-faced, as I sat meditating beneath a tree, or throw rocks at me as I did yoga. In the back, way back in my complex, next to the dumpster, for God's sakes. And so there's something so liberating while someone's screaming at you to be able to practice hearing and letting go. They say something that's hurtful, you feel the hurt, and you let it go. They say something ugly, you hear it, and then you let go. They're in your face, red, and just barking away at you, and you see the ugliness, and then you let go. That is so liberating. Like I said, some of my neighbors are lovely. Some not so much with the lovely. Page 8, exercise 3. What seeing? Letting go. I'm going to tell you a quick story. One time, about, 5 years ago, when I wasn't quite as sick as I am now, I was able to still use public transportation. I remember standing by a bus stop. And so I was just meditating away, counting on my mala. And I was able to notice some guy walking up and down the street who was clearly off his meds because he was having a violent discussion with people who weren't there. And then he, like a moth drawn to a porch light, he set his sights on me, and he came wandering over. And he really tried to beat me up. I didn't do kung fu. I didn't bob and weave. I stayed there in the present moment in all its excitement and practiced awareness and letting go. And he couldn't hit me. He tried. He couldn't hit me, so eventually just wandered off and talked to his invisible companion some more. Now, and I must say I haven't been assaulted, for, pretty close to, 4, 7, probably about 8 years since I was last assaulted, which is quite nice. Less physically assaulted. And This is neat. Now, is this the Jedi mind trick? I don't know. But it's pretty neat to be able to sit there in the present moment, in the nightmare of the present moment occasionally. Be aware of it, let go of it, don't try to manifest it, don't try to change it, don't try to use the Jedi mind trick. And just see what happens. To truly surf reality. Please join me now on page 9, exercise 1. Noticing, letting go. Now we're going to take noticing, letting go, reduce it to its one syllable version. This free. The next exercise we're going to do for 13 breaths. How do you count to 13? You don't. You just continue working on your mala until you get to your spacer. That's why I invite everyone to get the spacers on my page. I don't sell the spacers. The links just take you to a, what's it called? A company? A store? I don't get any commission. These are just the style of mala that I use. I have my students work with. There's a small size for children or girls. There's a big size for guys. I've had some feminists say that's just wrong. And so I was once dating a feminist, and so she grabbed the mala and she started counting on it. And she's all, oh yeah, this is kind of big. I would like smaller beads. It's just, you know. So if you have big, meaty hands, hey, get the big mala. If you have smaller fingers, get the smaller mala. But anyway, that's why it's on the page. It's very, very useful. Everything there is useful and pragmatic. Okay, so here we go. This free. Eyes open, gently noticing the face of the Buddha of compassion, yet still aware with our peripheral vision. We're not hiding from reality. We're embracing it. This free. I might have made it to the mala spacer before you, but it's because I'm breathing quicker, because I'm doing all this talking. It don't matter. Some people would say, hey man, that was a mighty short meditation. I'm far too spiritual for this greasy kid stuff. Don't worry, further in the future lessons, lessons 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it'll get longer. Don't worry. This is just the warm-up. We're just warming up. Okay, let's turn to page 10. Once you recite with me. These aren't prayers. These are dedications of virtuous merit. We're taking our good karma and we're aiming it through our intention. And we're guiding our intention through our words. Together. By this virtue may I now accomplish the spontaneous, habitual, easy, and effective mastery of Buddha's mental yogas of devotion, awareness, love, and letting go, and now lead every living being, without exception, to this ground. Second dedication. May everyone be healthy, wealthy, and happy. May everyone practice skillfully and joyfully. May everyone accomplish Chenrezig in this life, and then help many others do likewise. For truly that is the meaning of life. Om Mani Padme Hum. May I always be cared for throughout all my lives by the Buddha of compassion, emanating as my kind teacher. And as such may I always enthusiastically and joyfully tread this excellent path praised by the conquerors. If you are doing this once every morning and once every night for 6 consecutive days, do not be surprised when you accidentally memorize these. Spontaneous memorization is a lot of fun. Because I can promise you, by the time we get to the final page of Lesson 2, we're going to assume that you've memorized this, and we're going to recite these as you do some rather athletic yoga. Oh yeah, because after sitting on your tushy on the ground and accessing all this energy through these mantras, your body can get stiff. And so in the next lesson, we're going to loosen it up by doing 2 repetitions of 12-phase sun salutation and 2 repetitions of Vietnamese-inspired bows. Don't worry, when you learn those techniques, I'm going to assume you can't even spell the word yoga. But I'm going to assume that you've been doing your homework twice a day every day, and that you are now comfortable with reciting these reciting these from your mind as opposed to a piece of paper. Wahahaha. Now, if by the end of lesson 2 you can't do that, are you a failure as a contemplative? No. It's just a fun thing to shoot for. It's fun to stretch yourself. It's fun to challenge yourself, isn't it? It staves back the minions of boredom. Page 11, simply a list of guided meditations, their titles and their links. There's meditations for anger, pain, fear, illness, and as of today, sadness. And by Monday and Tuesday of next week, there should be also pains like that. Also be contemplations for overall yuck and neutral this. That'll make more sense during those lessons. Well, that's it, folks. Let me return to the main screen. I'm going to give you a quick benediction. May you and yours be healthy and happy. Om Mani Padme Hum. Before I go, I want to remind you to... Whoopsie, everything's all blurry now. What's going on with my camera? Oh. Okay, that's much better. Okay, so if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of your... Whoopsie, wrong way. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there you go. You're going to see a symbol for a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Please click the thumbs up, and once you do, it will reveal 3 social networking buttons. Yeah, right around here. And one will be for Facebook, and one will be for Twitter, and one will be for Google+, and give those each a click. And get more people watching these videos. That would be Jim Dandy. In parting, I told you before there were 2 links below the screen. I told you about the second link. What about the first link? That helps you takes you to the registration page so you can reserve your seat for the next series of weekly webinars. When does that begin? Friday, the 2nd of November. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.